In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, the Zephyrian Empire believed they understood the natural order. Predator and prey. Strong and weak. Alpha and Omega. For millennia, they had ruled through this simple philosophy, offering tribute to appease the mighty, sacrificing the small to preserve the great. When they encountered humanity's scattered colonies, they saw nothing more than another primitive species to be catalogued and controlled. Soft creatures with no claws, no natural armor, no obvious weapons. Easy prey. The albino apex wolf of Kepler 442b was their most sacred creature, a beast of legend standing 9 feet tall, with teeth like crystalline daggers and eyes that glowed like dying stars. For generations, they had fed it offerings to maintain their colony's protection, believing that satisfying this creature's hunger would guarantee their dominance over the planet's ecosystem. But, when the Zephyrians chose 8-year-old Emma Chen as their tribute, they made a calculation error that would echo across star systems. They saw a small human child and assumed weakness. They witnessed her tears and mistook them for helplessness. They observed her size and confused it with insignificance. They had never encountered humanity's most terrifying truth, that sometimes the smallest packages contain the most explosive surprises. That evolution had gifted humans not just with intelligence, but with something far more dangerous, the ability to form bonds that transcend logic, species, and even survival itself. What the Zephyrians discovered in the caves of Kepler 442b would shatter their understanding of the universe and teach them why humans had spread across the galaxy despite having no natural weapons, no thick hides, no venom or claws. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't look like a predator at all. The transport ship's engines hummed with the cold efficiency of Zephyrian technology as it descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere. Inside the cramped holding cell, 8-year-old Emma Chen pressed her face against the small viewport, watching alien clouds swirl past in shades of purple and gold. Her breath fogged the transparent aluminum as she tried to make sense of what was happening to her. 3 days ago, she had been playing in the hydroponics bay of New Geneva Colony with her best friend Marcus, building impossible towers out of nutrient cubes while her parents worked in the agricultural labs. Then, the Zephyrian ships had arrived, their hulls gleaming like black pearls against the starfield, and everything changed. Emma's small fingers traced the edge of her lucky bracelet, a simple chain of metal links her father had made for her 7th birthday. Each link represented a different earth animal: an elephant for strength, a dolphin for intelligence, a honey badger for courage. Her father had told her stories about each one, about how humans had shared their planet with creatures both gentle and fierce, and how they had learned from all of them. The universe is bigger than we can imagine, little star, her father had said, using his pet name for her. But humans have something special. We don't just survive, we adapt, we bond, we find ways to turn our weaknesses into strengths. Now, sitting in an alien prison that smelled of ozone and fear, Emma wondered if her father had been wrong. The cell door hissed open, and 3 Zephyrians entered. Their tall, serpentine forms moved with predatory grace, covered in scales that shifted from deep blue to silver depending on the light. The leader, whose ceremonial scarring marked him as a high-ranking official, looked down at Emma with eyes like polished obsidian. "Human child," he spoke through the translation device attached to his throat, his voice carrying the strange harmonic undertones of his species. "I am Sub-Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian 3rd Expansion Fleet. Do you understand why you are here?" Emma wrapped her arms around her knees, making herself as small as possible. She had heard the adults talking before the ships came, worried whispers about tribute and appeasement. "You're going to hurt me," she said quietly. Vextar's neck frills rippled in what might have been surprise or amusement. "Pain is not our intention, though it may be inevitable. Your colony has been deemed acceptable for inclusion in the Zephyrian sphere of influence. However, the planet you inhabit presents certain challenges." He gestured to one of his subordinates, who activated a holographic display showing the surface of Kepler 442b. The image rotated slowly, revealing continents covered in dense, dark forests and mountain ranges that scraped the sky. "This world harbors a creature of significant importance to our colonial efforts," Vextar continued. "The keeper of the depths, what your primitive linguistics would translate as an apex wolf. For 17 generations, our outposts have maintained harmony with this being through regular offerings. It ensures our settlements remain unmolested by the planet's other dangerous fauna." Emma stared at the hologram, noting the vast cave systems that honeycombed the largest continent. "You feed people to a monster. We maintain the natural order," Vextar corrected. "The strong survive. the weak serve a purpose. This has been the way of the galaxy long before your species crawled out of whatever primordial soup spawned you. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the planet's upper atmosphere. Through the viewport, Emma could see the surface rushing up to meet them, endless forests of trees with silver bark and leaves that glowed faintly in the alien sunlight. It was beautiful and terrifying, a world that seemed to pulse with its own alien heartbeat. Your colony's continued existence depends on this tribute, Vexstar said, his tone matter-of-fact. We require approximately one offering every 6 of your months. Your leaders have agreed to these terms. Emma felt something cold settle in her stomach. My parents agreed to this? Your colony's governing council made the logical choice. The survival of many outweighs the loss of few. It is mathematics, child. Simple and absolute. The transport touched down with barely a whisper, the Zephyrian dampening fields absorbing the impact. Through the viewport, Emma could see a landing platform carved into the side of a massive cliff face. Ancient-looking structures, all sharp angles and dark metal, clung to the rock like technological barnacles. In the distance, she could see the mouth of an enormous cave, its entrance easily large enough to swallow a starship. Why me? Emma asked as the Zephyrians began their pre-departure preparations. Why not someone bigger? Someone stronger? Vexstar paused in his work, studying her with those unreadable obsidian eyes. Size is irrelevant to the Keeper. It seeks certain qualities: youth, innocence, fear. These flavors enhance the experience for the creature. Your colony's leaders selected you based on our requirements. Emma felt tears threatening, but she pushed them back. Her father had always told her that humans were survivors, that they found ways to overcome impossible odds. She just needed to figure out how. The transport's cargo bay opened with a pneumatic hiss, and Emma was escorted out onto the platform. The air of Kepler 442b was thinner than Earth normal but breathable, carrying scents of ozone and something else, something wild and ancient that made the hair on her arms stand up. The gravity was lighter too, making each step feel slightly bouncy, like she was walking on a trampoline. The Zephyrian outpost was smaller than she had expected, maybe 50 buildings total, all connected by enclosed walkways. Most were clearly functional power generators, communication arrays, storage facilities. But some of the structures looked older, carved directly from the cliff face with symbols and designs that predated Zephyrian technology. This installation has been operational for over 400 Earth years, Vexstar explained as they walked toward the cave entrance. The original builders understood the importance of maintaining proper relations with the Keeper. We have simply continued their traditions. They passed several other Zephyrians, all of whom stopped their work to watch Emma with expressions she couldn't quite read. Some seemed curious, others almost pitying. One younger male started to approach but was quickly warned off by Vexstar's sharp hiss. The cave entrance loomed larger as they approached, its mouth easily 300 feet across and half as tall. The walls were smooth, almost polished, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the dim light. Ancient symbols covered every surface, some clearly Zephyrian, others far older and more primitive. The Keeper's domain extends for many kilometers underground, Vexstar said. These caves were carved over millennia, shaped by intelligence and purpose. The creature that dwells within is not merely a beast, it is something far more complex. Emma could hear something echoing from deep within the cave, a sound that was part howl, part growl, and part something else entirely. It seemed to reverberate through her bones, making her teeth ache. Will it hurt?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vexstar stopped walking and knelt down so they were eye level. For a moment, his alien features seemed almost sympathetic. "I do not know, child. The Keeper's methods are its own. Some offerings have lasted days. Others, minutes. There is no pattern we have been able to discern." He stood and gestured toward the cave entrance, where several automated systems were coming online: lights, sensors, what looked like recording equipment. The ritual must be completed before the sun sets, or the Keeper becomes restless. This affects the entire ecosystem of the continent. Emma looked back at the transport, where several Zephyrian technicians were running final system checks. She could see one of them speaking into a communication device, probably reporting back to their fleet that the tribute had been successfully delivered. "My parents," she said suddenly. "Will you tell them? What would you have us tell them?" Emma thought about it for a long moment, fingering her bracelet. "Tell them I remembered the stories. Tell them I tried to be brave. Vextar's neck frills rippled again. This will be done. The ceremonial platform at the cave entrance was clearly ancient, carved from the same dark stone as the surrounding cliffs but inlaid with metals that gleamed despite their obvious age. Symbols and pictographs covered its surface, showing what looked like offerings being presented to a massive creature. In some of the older images, the creature looked almost wolf-like. In others, it appeared more abstract, more elemental. The previous inhabitants of this world left extensive records, Vextar explained as Emma was led to the center of the platform. They worshipped the Keeper as a god, believing it to be the guardian of their planet's life force. When they disappeared, we inherited both their settlement and their obligations. What happened to them? Unknown. One day they simply were not. Their cities remain intact, their technology functional, but no bodies were ever found. It is one of many galactic mysteries. The sun was beginning to set, painting the alien sky in shades of amber and violet. The sound from deep within the cave was getting louder, more frequent. Something was stirring in the depths. Emma was fitted with a tracking device, its weight heavy against her small wrist. This will allow us to monitor your progress through the cave system, Vextar explained. For scientific purposes. You mean to see how long I last? Survival data is always useful for future negotiations. The ceremonial preparations were completed with efficient alien precision. Emma was given a simple meal, protein paste and water, and a basic thermal blanket. No weapons, no tools, nothing that might be construed as changing the natural balance between predator and prey. As the last light faded from the sky, the cave entrance began to glow with bioluminescent patterns that had been invisible during the day. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with soft blue and green light that followed the carved patterns like veins carrying luminous blood. It is time, Vextar announced. Emma stood at the threshold of the cave, the alien darkness yawning before her like the mouth of some impossible beast. The sound from the depths had changed, becoming more rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Or footsteps. Very large footsteps. She took one last look at the Zephyrian outpost, at the aliens who had traded her life for their continued security, and stepped into the darkness. Behind her, she could hear Vextar speaking into his communication device, tribute delivered. Monitoring systems active. May the Keeper be satisfied with our offering. The cave swallowed Emma's small form, and the bioluminescent patterns on the walls began to pulse faster, as if responding to her presence. Somewhere in the labyrinthine depths ahead, something ancient and terrible was awakening. But Emma Chen was not just any 8-year-old human child. She was the daughter of xenobiologists, raised on stories of Earth's most remarkable creatures and the bonds they could form across species lines. She carried in her pocket a small emergency beacon her father had hidden in her jacket, and around her wrist she wore a bracelet that reminded her of creatures who survived against impossible odds. Most importantly, she carried within her something the Zephyrians had never encountered and could never understand: the uniquely human ability to see beyond fear, to find connection in the most unlikely places, and to turn certain death into something else entirely. The cave echoed with new sounds as Emma disappeared into its depths. Not just the heavy footsteps of a predator approaching its prey, but something else. Something that sounded almost like communication. The cave system was unlike anything Emma had ever imagined. As she moved deeper into the mountain, the bioluminescent patterns on the walls provided just enough light to see by, creating an otherworldly landscape of shifting blue and green shadows. The passages were enormous, clearly carved by intelligence rather than natural forces, with smooth walls that curved in graceful arcs and ceiling heights that disappeared into darkness above. Emma's footsteps echoed strangely in the vast space, the sound seeming to travel much farther than it should. She kept one hand trailing along the wall as she walked, following the glowing patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. The tracking device on her wrist beeped softly every few minutes, a reminder that the Zephyrians were monitoring her progress through their instruments. The deeper she went, the more she began to notice details that the aliens had not mentioned. The carved symbols on the walls were not random decorations, they told a story. The earliest symbols, near the cave entrance, showed primitive humanoid figures presenting offerings to a large creature. But, as Emma progressed deeper, the pictographs became more complex, showing what looked like cooperation rather than sacrifice. The creature and the people working together, building structures, sharing resources. That's weird, Emma whispered to herself, her voice seeming tiny in the vast passage. It doesn't look like they were afraid of it. she paused at a wider section where several tunnels converged, trying to decide which path to take. The glowing patterns seemed brighter here, and she could see more clearly the incredible craftsmanship that had gone into carving these spaces. The walls were not just smooth, they were polished to a mirror finish in places, reflecting the bioluminescent light in complex patterns. That was when she heard it clearly for the first time. Not the distant howling that had echoed from the depths, but something much closer and more immediate. Breathing. Deep, rhythmic breathing that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Emma froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. Slowly, she turned in a circle, trying to locate the source of the sound. The breathing was too deep, too powerful to be human. But there was something about its pattern that seemed controlled. Deliberate. "Hello?" Emma called out, her voice cracking slightly. "I know you're there." The breathing stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the sound had been. Emma waited, every muscle in her body tense, for whatever was going to happen next. The bioluminescent patterns on the walls seemed to pulse faster, and she could swear the temperature in the cave had dropped several degrees. Then, she saw it. At first, it was just a pair of eyes reflecting the blue-green light from somewhere in the darkness ahead. But, as the creature moved closer, Emma could make out its massive form. The Zephyrians had called it an apex wolf, but that description was woefully inadequate. The creature was easily 9 feet tall at the shoulder, with a body that seemed to be built for both power and grace. Its fur was pure white, almost luminescent in the cave's strange light, and its eyes were a pale silver that seemed to glow with their own inner fire. But what struck Emma most was not the creature's size or obvious predatory capabilities. It was the intelligence in those eyes. This was not a mindless beast driven by hunger. This was something that thought, that planned, that understood far more than the Zephyrians had ever realized. The wolf approached slowly, its massive paws making no sound on the stone floor. Emma could see the muscles moving under its fur, the careful way it tested each step before committing its weight. It was being cautious, she realized. Maybe even nervous? "You're scared too," Emma said softly, the realization surprising her. The wolf stopped about 20 feet away, its head tilted slightly as if considering her words. This close, Emma could see that its white fur was not solid color, there were patterns in it, subtle variations that created designs almost like the symbols on the cave walls. And, around its neck, nearly hidden in the thick fur, she could see what looked like a collar made of the same dark metal as the ancient structures. "You understand me, don't you?" Emma asked, taking a small step forward. The wolf's ears flicked forward, and it lowered its massive head slightly. Not in aggression, Emma realized, but in what almost looked like acknowledgement. Emma's mind raced, thinking about all the stories her father had told her about earth animals. About how wolves were social creatures, pack animals who formed complex bonds and hierarchies. About how they communicated not just through howls and growls, but through body language, scent, and a dozen other subtle signals. "The people who built this place," Emma said, gesturing to the carved walls around them. "You knew them, didn't you? You were friends." The wolf moved closer, close enough that Emma could feel the warmth radiating from its massive body. She could smell its scent now, not the rank odor of a wild predator, but something clean and almost metallic, like ozone after a thunderstorm. Slowly, carefully, Emma reached out her hand. The wolf watched her movement with those intelligent silver eyes, and, after a moment's hesitation, it lowered its head until her small hand was resting on its massive snout. The fur was incredibly soft, softer than anything Emma had ever felt. But what shocked her was the gentle way the wolf accepted her touch, the way its eyes seemed to soften somehow. "They've been feeding you people," Emma said quietly. "The Zephyrians. But that's not what you want, is it?" The wolf pulled back slightly, and Emma could see something that looked almost like sadness in its expression. It turned its head toward one of the side passages, then looked back at her as if asking her to follow. "You want to show me something?" Emma followed the wolf deeper into the cave system, through passages that became increasingly elaborate. The walls here were covered not just with symbols but with what looked like star charts, mathematical equations, and diagrams of technology that was far beyond anything Emma understood. The bioluminescent patterns were brighter too, providing enough light to see clearly. They emerged into a vast chamber that took Emma's breath away. The space was easily the size of a football stadium, with a domed ceiling that was covered in points of light arranged like constellations. But it wasn't the size that amazed her, it was what the chamber contained. The entire floor was covered with what looked like a garden. But, instead of earth plants, these were alien growths that glowed with their own inner light. Some looked like trees made of crystal, others like flowering vines that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The air was filled with a sweet, oxygenated scent that made Emma feel more alert and energized. And, throughout the garden, Emma could see the remains of ancient technology. Devices that hummed with quiet power, structures that seemed to be monitoring and maintaining the plant life, systems that were clearly far beyond anything the current inhabitants of the planet had achieved. "This is what they built," Emma whispered in awe. "The people who lived here before. This is what they were protecting." The wolf moved to the center of the chamber, where a raised platform held what looked like a control console. The interface was clearly designed for human-sized hands, not the claws or scaled appendages of the Zephyrians. As the wolf approached, the console activated, displaying holographic images and text in a language Emma couldn't read. But she could understand the pictures. They showed the planet as it had been thousands of years ago, lush and green, covered with cities and farmland, supporting a population of millions. The people in the images looked almost human, though there were subtle differences that suggested they were either an earlier branch of humanity or a closely related species. The images showed how they had worked with the creature Emma now knew as the Keeper, using its unique abilities to maintain the planet's ecosystem. The wolf wasn't just an apex predator, it was a living interface with the planet's biosphere, capable of monitoring and adjusting the delicate balance of life across an entire world. But, then, something had gone wrong. The images showed ships arriving from space, conflicts breaking out, and, finally, a great exodus as the planet's inhabitants fled to the stars. The Keeper had been left behind, alone, to maintain systems it could monitor but not fully control without its partners. "That's why you're sad," Emma said, understanding flooding through her. "You've been alone here for thousands of years, watching over their garden, waiting for them to come back." The wolf looked at her with those ancient, intelligent eyes, and Emma could see the weight of centuries in its gaze. The Zephyrians had found a planet with automated systems and a guardian they didn't understand, and they had interpreted the whole situation through their own limited cultural lens. They saw predator and prey where there should have been partnership. Emma's wrist communicator crackled to life, making her jump. Vexstar's voice filled the chamber. "Human child, your tracking signal indicates you have been stationary for an extended period. Are you injured? Please respond." Emma looked at the communicator, then at the wolf, then at the incredible garden chamber around them. An idea was forming in her mind, a crazy, impossible idea that just might work. "I'm fine," she said into the communicator. "I'm exploring." "The Keeper approaches your position," Vexstar's voice carried a note of excitement. "Prepare for termination." Emma almost laughed. If only they knew. She looked up at the wolf, who was watching her with what she was beginning to recognize as curiosity. "They think you're going to eat me," she said. "But you don't eat people, do you?" "You never did." The wolf's response was to lie down on the platform, bringing its massive head closer to Emma's level. This close, she could see the incredible detail in its collar, not just metal, but some kind of technology that interfaced directly with the biological systems around them. "The people who made you this collar," Emma said, reaching out to touch the device gently. "They wanted you to be able to take care of their world even when they weren't here. But the Zephyrians don't understand. They think you're just a big scary monster that needs to be fed." The collar was warm under her fingers, and she could feel a subtle vibration running through it. As she touched it, some of the symbols on the cave walls began to glow brighter, and new displays activated on the control console. Emma's father had taught her about symbiosis, the way different species could work together for mutual benefit. He had shown her examples from Earth, cleaner fish and sharks, humans and dogs, flowers and bees. All partnerships where each species provided something the other needed. "What if we made a new partnership?" Emma asked the wolf. "What if I helped you fix this place, and you helped me deal with the Zephyrians?" The wolf's ears perked up, and it raised its head to look directly into her eyes. Emma could see something changing in its expression, a spark of hope that hadn't been there before. "I know I'm just a kid," Emma said. "I don't know how to work alien technology or manage a planet's ecosystem. But I know how to learn. And I know how to make friends." She pulled out the small emergency beacon her father had hidden in her jacket, a device capable of sending a signal across interstellar distances. "I can call for help. Real help." People who understand science and technology and how to fix things. The wolf moved closer until its massive head was resting against Emma's side. She could feel its warmth, its strength, but also something else, loneliness so profound it made her heart ache. "You don't have to be alone anymore," she whispered, wrapping her arms around the wolf's massive neck. "I promise." The communicator crackled again. "Human child, respond immediately. Our sensors show significant energy fluctuations in your area. What is your status?" Emma smiled, a plan taking shape in her mind. A plan that would require all the courage her father's stories had taught her, all the intelligence her parents' scientific training had instilled in her, and all the uniquely human ability to see beyond the obvious that had carried her species across the galaxy. "My status," she said into the communicator, "is about to get very interesting." Above them, the artificial stars in the chamber's ceiling began to pulse in new patterns, responding to the presence of both girl and guardian. The garden around them seemed to rustle with newfound energy, as if the very planet was awakening from a long and troubled sleep. In the depths of Kepler 442b, an 8-year-old human child and an ancient alien guardian were about to teach the Zephyrian Empire something they had never learned in all their centuries of conquest: that the most dangerous creatures in the universe are not always the ones with the biggest teeth. Emma spent the next several hours learning about the true nature of the Keeper and the incredible systems hidden beneath Kepler 442b's surface. The wolf, who she had started thinking of as Frost because of its pure white fur, was surprisingly patient as a teacher, using a combination of physical demonstrations and the ancient technology to show her how the planet's ecosystem actually worked. The collar around Frost's neck wasn't just decoration, it was a sophisticated bio-interface that connected the creature directly to the planet's environmental monitoring systems. Through it, Frost could sense changes in atmospheric composition, detect seismic activity, monitor the health of plant and animal populations across entire continents, and even influence weather patterns to some degree. "You're not just a guardian," Emma said in amazement as she watched holographic displays show real-time data from across the planet. "You're like the planet's central nervous system." Frost's response was a low, harmonic sound that seemed to come from deep in its chest. Not quite a growl, not quite a howl, something that felt like agreement mixed with sadness. The original inhabitants of the planet had been master biotechnicians, Emma realized. They had understood something that most spacefaring civilizations missed: that technology and biology didn't have to be separate things. They had created living systems that could adapt and evolve, guided by an intelligence that was part biological, part artificial, and entirely beyond anything Emma had seen before. But they had also understood something else: that such systems required partnership, cooperation, and trust. The Keeper couldn't maintain the planet alone. It needed allies, helpers, friends who could assist with tasks that required smaller hands, different perspectives, and the kind of creative problem-solving that seemed to be uniquely sentient. "The Zephyrians have been doing it all wrong," Emma said, studying a display that showed how the planet's ecosystem had been slowly degrading over the centuries since the original inhabitants left. "They thought they were feeding you, but really they were just interrupting. Every time the Zephyrians brought an offering to the cave, they disrupted Frost's work." The creature was forced to deal with terrified sentience in its sacred spaces, leaving the important environmental monitoring to automated systems that were slowly failing. The planet was dying, not from the Keeper's hunger, but from neglect. Emma's wrist communicator had been buzzing with increasingly frantic calls from the Zephyrian outpost above. She had been down in the caves for almost 6 hours now, far longer than any previous offering had survived. She could hear the confusion and growing concern in Vexstar's transmissions. "Human child, respond immediately. Our sensors indicate you are in the primary biochamber. This is unprecedented." Emma looked at Frost, who was lying nearby with its massive head resting on its paws, watching her work with the ancient control systems. She had managed to activate several dormant monitoring stations, and the chamber's lighting had brightened considerably as more systems came online. "What do you think?" Emma asked the wolf. "Ready to give them a surprise?" Frost's response was what Emma had learned to recognize as amusement, a soft chuffing sound accompanied by what might have been the alien equivalent of a smile. Emma activated the communicator. "This is Emma Chan. I'm fine, Vexstar. Better than fine, actually. I think we need to talk." There was a long pause before Vexstar's voice returned, tight with confusion. "You should be, the Keeper should have, explain your current status." "I'm safe. I'm with the Keeper, and we've been having a very interesting conversation about this planet and how things really work here." "Impossible. The creature is a mindless predator. You are either injured and delirious, or maybe you don't know as much about this place as you thought, Emma interrupted. Frost, that's what I'm calling the Keeper, isn't a monster. It's the planetary maintenance system's primary interface. And it's been trying to keep this world alive while you've been interrupting its work for hundreds of years. The silence from the communicator stretched so long that Emma wondered if the signal had been cut. Finally, Vexstar's voice returned, carrying a note she had never heard before: uncertainty. Human child, you will exit the cave system immediately and report to the platform for debriefing. No, Emma said simply. You refuse a direct order? I refuse to leave my friend. And I refuse to let you keep making this mistake. Emma could hear other Zephyrian voices in the background now, heated discussions in their own language. She caught a few words through the translation system: impossible, contamination, protocol breach. Besides, Emma continued, I don't think Frost would let you take me even if I wanted to leave. Would you, boy? Frost raised its massive head and let out a sound that was definitely not a howl. It was deeper, more resonant, and seemed to carry harmonics that Emma could feel in her bones. The sound echoed through the cave system and up to the surface, where she knew the Zephyrians were hearing it clearly. Assessment required, Vexstar said, his voice tight with what might have been fear. We are deploying a reconnaissance team to your location. Emma grinned. Good. There's a lot I want to show you. While they waited for the Zephyrians to arrive, Emma continued exploring the biochamber with Frost's guidance. The more she learned, the more amazed she became. The original inhabitants hadn't just created a planetary maintenance system, they had created art. The bioluminescent gardens weren't just functional, they were beautiful. The technology wasn't just efficient, it was elegant. Everything was designed to work in harmony, to enhance rather than dominate. This is what my parents study, Emma explained to Frost as they walked through a section of the garden that was responding to their presence by shifting its light patterns. How different species can work together. How life finds ways to cooperate instead of just competing. Frost moved to a section of the chamber that Emma hadn't seen before, where a series of transparent tubes connected different areas of the garden. Inside the tubes, she could see flowing liquids in various colors, nutrients, Emma realized, being distributed throughout the system based on real-time need assessments. You're not just maintaining the ecosystem, Emma said in wonder. You're improving it. Making it better than it was before. The wolf's response was a gentle touch of its massive nose against her shoulder, a gesture that reminded Emma so much of her dog back on New Geneva Colony that she felt a sudden sharp pang of homesickness. I miss my family too, she said softly. But maybe we can figure out a way to fix this whole situation. To help everyone. Emma activated her emergency beacon, the one her father had hidden in her jacket. The device was designed to send a distress signal that could reach New Geneva Colony and, beyond, to the wider human colonial network, to the Earth Alliance, to anyone who might be listening. But, instead of sending a simple distress call, Emma recorded a message. This is Emma Chen, broadcasting from Kepler 442b. I'm safe, but I need help. The situation here is not what anyone thinks it is. The planet has an ancient guardian system that's been misunderstood by the current occupiers. I'm requesting immediate assistance from xenobiologists, systems engineers, and diplomatic personnel. The keeper of this world is not a threat, it's the key to one of the most incredible biological partnerships I've ever seen. Please hurry. She attached the message to every data file she could access through the ancient systems, including detailed scans of the biochamber, recordings of her interactions with Frost, and analysis data that would prove to any scientist that what they were dealing with was far beyond simple predator-prey dynamics. The emergency beacon signal was powerful enough to punch through the planet's magnetic field and reach the communication satellites in orbit. From there, it would propagate through the colonial network, reaching dozens of human settlements and research stations. Help is coming, Emma told Frost. Real help. People who will understand what you are and what you're trying to do. Frost's response was that harmonic sound again, but this time it carried a note that Emma interpreted as hope. The first Zephyrian reconnaissance team arrived about an hour later, their portable lights creating harsh shadows in the biochamber's natural bioluminescence. There were 5 of them, led by a younger officer whose scales showed the mottled pattern of recent stress. They entered cautiously, weapons drawn, clearly expecting to find either Emma's remains or evidence of the keeper's feeding behavior. What they found instead was Emma sitting comfortably against Frost's side, both of them surrounded by a garden that was literally glowing with renewed health and vitality. Sub-Commander Koltek reporting, the lead Zephyrian said, his voice tight with disbelief. We have located the human child. She appears unharmed. More than unharmed, Emma said cheerfully. I'm great. Frost and I have been fixing things. Koltek's weapon remained trained on the massive white wolf, even though Frost showed no signs of aggression. If anything, the creature seemed mildly curious about the newcomers, its head tilted in a gesture that looked almost friendly. The creature is contained? Koltek asked. Frost isn't contained, Emma said, standing up and moving to scratch behind the wolf's ears. The gesture made all 5 Zephyrians tense, but Frost simply leaned into the touch with obvious pleasure. Frost is my friend. And, before you ask, no, I'm not under any kind of alien influence. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Impossible, one of the other Zephyrians muttered. The creature is a predator. It consumes offerings. No, Emma said firmly. Frost is a guardian. A keeper. A partner. The people who lived here before understood that. You never did. She gestured to the displays around them, which were still showing real-time environmental data from across the planet. Look at your own sensor readings. The ecosystem is healthier now than it's been in decades. Frost has been working to repair centuries of damage, but it needed help. It needed a partner. Koltek moved closer to one of the displays, his weapon still ready but his attention clearly caught by the data. These readings, how is this possible? The original inhabitants of this planet were master biotechnicians, Emma explained. They created a living system that could maintain and improve itself, but it was designed to work with sentient partners. When you started feeding people to Frost, you weren't satisfying some primitive hunger, you were interrupting crucial maintenance work. Emma could see understanding beginning to dawn in Koltek's expression, followed quickly by something that might have been horror. The offerings, we have been damaging the system? For 400 years, Emma confirmed. But it's not too late to fix it. Frost is willing to work with you, to teach you how the system really operates. But not as master and beast. As partners. Frost chose that moment to demonstrate, moving to one of the control interfaces and using its nose to activate a series of displays. The screen showed detailed analyses of the Zephyrian outpost above, including structural recommendations, environmental improvements, and integration suggestions that would allow the alien settlement to work with the planet's natural systems instead of against them. It's offering to help you, Emma said. To make your colony better, more sustainable, more integrated. Koltek's communicator crackled, report status immediately. Sir, Koltek said, his voice carefully controlled, we have a situation that requires immediate command review. The human child she is operating alien technology in cooperation with the Keeper. The implications are impossible. You will retrieve the child and return to base for proper debriefing. Emma stepped forward. Tell Vexstar that if he wants to understand what's really happening here, he needs to come down himself. Bring your best scientists, your most senior engineers, anyone who can recognize revolutionary biotechnology when they see it. She paused, then added with a grin that was pure 8-year-old mischief, and tell him to hurry. Because I sent a message to my people, and, when they get here, they're going to want to know why the Zephyrian Empire has been systematically sabotaging one of the most important ecological partnerships in the galaxy. Koltek stared at her for a long moment, then activated his communicator. Sir, I recommend immediate command presence in the biochamber. The situation is significantly more complex than anticipated. As they waited for Vexstar's response, Emma continued her demonstration of the ancient systems, with Frost's patient assistance. She showed the Zephyrians how the environmental controls worked, how the biomonitoring systems functioned, how the entire cave complex was essentially a living computer designed to maintain planetary health. But, most importantly, she showed them how cooperation worked. How a human child and an alien guardian could communicate, could trust each other, could work together toward common goals. It was a lesson the Zephyrian Empire was about to learn whether they wanted to or not. Because Emma's message had already traveled far beyond Kepler 442b, and help was indeed on the way. Help that would change everything. Sub-Commander Vexstar arrived at the biochamber with a full scientific team and enough military escort to invade a small moon. Emma could hear them coming long before they reached the garden chamber, the sound of heavy boots and equipment echoing through the cave system, accompanied by the harsh glare of portable fusion lights that made the natural bioluminescence seem dim by comparison. Frost's reaction to the approaching group was immediate and concerning. The massive wolf rose to its feet, every muscle in its body tense, ears flat against its head. A low growl rumbled from deep in its chest, not the harmonic communication Emma had grown used to, but something far more primitive and threatening. "Easy, boy," Emma said, placing her hand on Frost's flank. She could feel the creature's distress through its biocollar, which was pulsing with agitated patterns. "I know there are a lot of them, but we need to try." Emma had spent the last 2 hours preparing for this confrontation. Using the ancient systems, she had compiled comprehensive data packages about the planet's true nature, the Keeper's actual function, and the environmental damage caused by 4 centuries of misguided tribute offerings. She had also made a discovery that she knew would shake the Zephyrian Empire to its core. The cave system wasn't just a single underground complex. It was part of a planet-wide network that connected to similar chambers on every continent. And, in each of those chambers, there was a keeper. Frost wasn't alone, there were dozens of guardians working together to maintain the planetary ecosystem. The Zephyrians had only ever known about one of them because they had never bothered to explore beyond their initial settlement. When Vextar's party entered the biochamber, their reaction was everything Emma had hoped for. The harsh military precision she had seen at the surface immediately gave way to confusion and wonder as they took in the impossible vista of the ancient garden. Several of the Zephyrian scientists immediately began scanning everything in sight, their instruments detecting energy signatures and biological complexity far beyond anything in their databases. "Report," Vextar commanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Emma could see his eyes darting around the chamber, trying to process what he was seeing. "Sir," Koltek began, "the human child has activated significant portions of the ancient technology. She appears to have established communication with the Keeper and gained access to planetary monitoring systems." "Communication," Vextar repeated flatly. "Hi, Vextar," Emma said cheerfully, stepping out from behind one of the larger biodisplays. "Welcome to the real Kepler 442b." Frost moved to stand beside Emma, its massive form radiating protective energy. This close, the Zephyrian military escort could see clearly that the creature was magnificent rather than monstrous, its white fur pristine, its silver eyes intelligent and alert, its movements graceful despite its enormous size. "The creature should have killed you," Vextar said, though he sounded less certain than before. "Frost doesn't kill people," Emma replied. "Frost protects them. Or tries to, when you're not interrupting with your stupid tribute system." She gestured to the displays around them, which now showed comprehensive data about the planet's ecosystem. "This is what you've been looking at for 400 years without ever bothering to understand it. Kepler 442b isn't just a planet with a dangerous predator. It's a living partnership between biological and technological systems, maintained by guardians who are probably smarter than any of us." Vextar's scientific team was already deep in analysis of the data Emma had made available. She could hear excited conversations in the Zephyrian language as they discovered layer after layer of sophisticated biotechnology. Chief Science Officer Zetmar, Vextar called to a heavily scarred Zephyrian with the insignia of the Science Corps. "Assessment?" Zetmar looked up from a bioscanner that was practically smoking from overuse. "Sir, the readings are unprecedented. This chamber alone contains technology that exceeds our capabilities by several orders of magnitude. The integration between biological and artificial systems is seamless. We are looking at a masterwork of ecological engineering." "And the creature?" "Not a creature, sir. An interface. A living component of the planetary management system." Zetmar's voice carried a note of awe. "The biocollar is not a restraint, it is the most sophisticated neural interface I have ever encountered. The entity is quite literally connected to the planet's entire biosphere." Emma stepped forward. "That's not all. Show them the network map, Frost." Frost moved to one of the central control interfaces, and the chamber's ceiling displays activated. A three-dimensional map of the planet appeared above them, showing the locations of biochambers on every continent. Each chamber pulsed with its own light, and Emma could see the Zephyrians' expressions change as they realized the scope of what they were looking at. "There are 47 active chambers," Emma explained. "Each with its own keeper. They work together to maintain atmospheric composition, regulate weather patterns, manage tectonic stability, and coordinate the health of ecosystems across the entire planet. The map zoomed in on different regions, showing the incredible complexity of the planetary management system. Rivers that had been diverted to prevent flooding. Volcanic activity that had been carefully regulated to maintain atmospheric balance. Weather systems that had been nudged to ensure optimal growing conditions for both native species and the carefully managed agricultural zones. For 4 centuries, Emma continued, you've been forcing one keeper to abandon its post every 6 months to deal with your offerings. That's why the planetary systems have been degrading. That's why your colony has been experiencing increasing environmental problems. You've been sabotaging the very system that was trying to help you. Vexstar stared at the display for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. The ecosystem instabilities we have experienced were caused by forcing Frost to waste time dealing with terrified sacrifices instead of doing its actual job, Emma confirmed. Every time you brought someone here, you were essentially crashing the planetary maintenance system. One of the younger scientists, a female Zephyrian with bright green scaling, approached the central interface hesitantly. The bioforms in this chamber, they are not native to the planet? Some are, Emma said. Some are engineered variants of native species. Others are imports from the original inhabitants' homeworld. The system can adapt and evolve to incorporate new biological elements that benefit the overall ecosystem. Emma gestured to Frost, who moved to demonstrate. The wolf approached a section of the garden where several withered bioforms were struggling. Through its collar interface, Frost made subtle adjustments to the nutrient flow and lighting conditions. Within minutes, the struggling plants began to recover, their bioluminescent patterns brightening as they regained health. The keepers can actively manage and heal damaged systems, Emma explained. But only when they're not being interrupted by your tribute demands. Emma's wrist communicator chimed with an incoming message. She activated it to find her father's face appearing in a small holographic display. Emma. Thank God you're safe. We received your beacon transmission, Dad. Emma's composure finally cracked as she saw her father's familiar face. I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm having the most amazing adventure. Dr. Chen's expression shifted as he took in Emma's surroundings and the large white form visible beside her. Emma, what exactly is that creature? This is Frost. He's my friend and he's the planetary maintenance supervisor for this entire world. Dr. Chen blinked. I'm sorry, what? Before Emma could explain further, Vexstar stepped into the communicator's field of view. Dr. Chen, I presume. I am Sub-Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian 3rd Expansion Fleet. You're the one who took my daughter as tribute to some alien monster. Dr. Chen's voice was dangerously calm. The situation has proven to be significantly more complex than anticipated, Vexstar replied. Your offspring has demonstrated capabilities and insights that have altered our understanding of this world. Dad, Emma interrupted, I need you to get here as fast as possible. Bring Mom, bring the xenobiology team, bring anyone who understands ecosystem management. This place is incredible, and the Zephyrians need help understanding what they've stumbled into. Dr. Chen looked at his daughter, dirty, tired, but obviously unharmed and more excited than he had seen her in months. Emma, are you certain you're safe? I'm safer than anyone else on this planet, Emma said confidently. Frost won't let anything hurt me. And I think I'm the first person in 400 years who's actually bothered to ask what this place really is. We are dispatching emergency response teams immediately, Dr. Chen said. The Earth Alliance has been notified of the situation. Expect arrival of scientific and diplomatic personnel within 48 hours. Vexstar's posture stiffened at the mention of the Earth Alliance. Sub-Commander, one of his aides whispered urgently, Alliance involvement could complicate our territorial claims. Your territorial claims, Emma said, having overheard the comment, are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what this planet actually is. She turned to address the entire Zephyrian group. You can't own a planet that's already owned. And Kepler 442b belongs to the Keepers. It always has. The original inhabitants understood that they were partners, not rulers. Emma moved to another interface, and the displays changed to show historical data from the planet's archives. Images of the original inhabitants working alongside the keepers, building the biochambers, establishing the planetary management network. They didn't abandon this place, Emma explained. They went to the stars to seed other worlds with the same kind of partnership system. This planet was their prototype, their proof of concept. The keepers have been maintaining it all this time, waiting for someone to understand what it really is. Frost moved closer to the Zephyrian group, and Emma could see several of them tense despite the creature's obviously peaceful intentions. But, instead of showing aggression, Frost lowered its massive head in what Emma had learned was a gesture of greeting. Frost wants to work with you, Emma translated. All the keepers do. They want to help your colonies become sustainable, integrated, healthy. But, they need partners, not masters. They need cooperation, not domination. Zetmar approached Frost cautiously, scanner in hand. May I? She asked, looking between Emma and the wolf. Frost? Emma asked. Is it okay if she scans you? Frost's response was that harmonic sound of agreement. Zetmar began her scans, and Emma could see her expression change as she realized what she was looking at. Sir, Zetmar said to Vexstar, the neural complexity readings are extraordinary. This entity's cognitive capabilities may exceed our own by significant margins. How significant? Vexstar asked. Conservative estimate? The intelligence equivalent of our greatest supercomputers, combined with intuitive reasoning capabilities we have never successfully replicated artificially. Emma grinned. Frost is basically a living planet brain. And, there are 47 of them working together. You've been treating the smartest beings in the sector like wild animals. The implications of what Emma was saying began to sink in. The Zephyrian Empire had built their expansion policies on the assumption that they were dealing with primitive predators and uninhabited worlds. If Kepler 442b was actually a sophisticated cooperative society of superintelligent beings managing their own planetary system. This changes everything, Vexstar said quietly. Yes, Emma agreed. It does. The question is, what are you going to do about it? As if summoned by her words, Emma's communicator chimed with another incoming transmission. This one carried the formal seals of the Earth Alliance Diplomatic Corps. This is Ambassador Sarah Martinez of the Earth Alliance, the voice said. We are en route to Kepler 442b with full diplomatic and scientific teams. All parties are advised that this planet is now under Alliance protection pending formal contact protocols with the indigenous intelligent species. Emma looked at Vexstar with raised eyebrows. Told you help was coming. The sub-commander stared at the displays around him, at the incredible technology, at the massive white wolf who was watching him with ancient, patient eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight Emma hadn't heard before. Perhaps, Vexstar said slowly, it is time for the Zephyrian Empire to learn something new about cooperation. Emma's smile could have powered the biochamber's lighting systems. Now you're talking. 6 months later, Emma Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed research station overlooking the biochamber where she had first met Frost. The facility was unlike anything that had been built before, a perfect integration of human engineering, Zephyrian technology, and keeper biotechnology that seemed to grow from the planet itself rather than being imposed upon it. Through the transparent walls, she could see Frost working alongside Dr. Sarah Kim, Emma's mother, and Chief Science Officer Zetmar on a complex atmospheric adjustment project. The sight still amazed her, the massive white wolf using its biocollar to interface with ancient systems while the scientists provided calculations and theoretical frameworks that enhanced the keeper's intuitive understanding of planetary mechanics. The integration protocols are exceeding all projections, Ambassador Martinez said, reviewing the latest reports on her datapad. The Zephyrian colonies have seen a 40% increase in agricultural yields, a 60% reduction in environmental incidents, and complete stabilization of tectonic activity. Emma nodded, though her attention was focused on the larger holographic display that showed the global network. All 47 biochambers were now active and fully integrated, their keepers working in perfect coordination for the first time in centuries. The planet was literally healing itself, repairing centuries of damage with a speed that defied conventional understanding of ecological recovery. The keepers are remarkable, said Dr. James Chen, Emma's father, as he joined them on the observation deck. Their ability to model complex ecological interactions in real time is beyond anything we've achieved with our most sophisticated computer systems. But, what's truly extraordinary is their emotional intelligence. Emma smiled, remembering her first conversation with Frost about loneliness and partnership. They were designed to work with people. The original inhabitants understood that intelligence alone wasn't enough, you need emotional connection to build real partnerships. Through the chamber's communication system, Emma could hear her mother discussing atmospheric chemistry with Frost. The conversation was conducted through a combination of verbal communication, biocollar interfaces, and interpretive dance, a form of three-dimensional mathematical expression that the keepers used to describe complex relationships. The Zephyrian Council has formally requested guidance on integrating keeper partnerships into their other colonies, Ambassador Martinez said. They're offering to share the bio-integration technology with any alliance worlds that want to participate. Emma wasn't entirely surprised. Once Vexstar had understood the true nature of the planet, he had become one of the most enthusiastic supporters of the new cooperative model. The sub-commander had spent weeks learning to communicate with Frost directly, and Emma had watched his entire worldview transform as he realized the possibilities that opened up when different species worked together instead of trying to dominate each other. Speaking of Vexstar, Dr. Chen said, he wanted me to give you this. He handed Emma a small device that looked like a crystalline flower. When she touched it, the crystal glowed and projected a holographic message of Vexstar in his formal diplomatic robes. Emma Chen, the message began, I have been instructed by the Zephyrian High Council to present you with the Order of Ecological Wisdom, the highest honor our science corps can bestow. Your insights have not only prevented a diplomatic catastrophe but have opened new pathways of cooperation that will benefit both our species for generations to come. The holographic Vexstar paused, and Emma could see something that looked almost like embarrassment in his alien features. I must also offer formal apologies for our initial misunderstanding of your nature and capabilities. We have learned much about the dangers of making assumptions based on physical appearance. Emma grinned. You can say that again. There is also a personal message, the hologram continued. Frost has requested that I inform you that the Keeper Collective has formally designated you as the first human partner friend, a title that has not been bestowed upon anyone since the original inhabitants departed. This is an honor that carries significant responsibilities, should you choose to accept it. Emma looked down at the biochamber where Frost was demonstrating something to the scientific team. As if sensing her attention, the massive wolf looked up and gave what Emma had learned to recognize as its version of a smile. I think I can handle the responsibilities, Emma said. Ambassador Martinez checked her chronometer. Speaking of responsibilities, Emma, you have an appointment with the Education Committee in 30 minutes. Emma nodded. One of the most exciting developments of the past 6 months had been the establishment of the first interspecies cooperative education program. Human children, young Zephyrians, and Keeper cubs would be learning together, studying ecological partnerships, biointegration, and the kind of cooperative problem-solving that had made the Kepler 442b project so successful. Emma was going to be the first human student in the program, but she was also going to be one of the first teachers. Her experience with Frost had given her insights into interspecies communication that even the most experienced xenobiologists were still learning to understand. I should go get ready, Emma said. But, first, she activated the chamber's communication system. Hey Frost, how's the atmospheric project going? The response came back as that familiar harmonic sound, but now Emma could understand it clearly. The biocollar technology had been adapted to create translation interfaces that allowed real-time communication between species. Frost's message came through as warm amusement combined with satisfaction. Good progress. The nitrogen cycle adjustments are exceeding projections by 12%. Your mother's theoretical frameworks are proving very useful for optimizing nutrient distribution. That's great, Emma said. I'm heading to the education meeting now. Will you be able to join us for the curriculum discussion this afternoon? Looking forward to it. The young ones need to understand partnership from the beginning. Emma signed off and headed toward the education center, but she paused at one of the corridor windows to look out at the planet's surface. In the distance, she could see the Zephyrian colonies, their architecture now seamlessly integrated with the planet's natural systems. Crystalline spires grew from living rock formations, powered by bioelectrical systems that enhanced rather than disrupted the local ecosystem. Even more remarkable were the signs of cooperation everywhere she looked. Zephyrian engineers working with Keeper Guardians to design new habitation systems. Human scientists learning biotechnology that could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. Children of all three species playing together in gardens that responded to their laughter with cascades of bioluminescent light. It's beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Shin said, joining her at the window. It's what the universe could be like everywhere, Emma replied. If people just bothered to ask questions instead of making assumptions. As she watched, a transport ship was landing at the diplomatic platform, another delegation from a different alliance world, coming to see what the Kepler 442b partnership had achieved. Word was spreading throughout the galaxy about the planet where three different species had learned to work together so effectively that they were literally healing a world. Emma's wrist communicator chimed with a message from Marcus, her best friend back on New Geneva Colony. The text was accompanied by a holographic recording of him standing in the colony's hydroponics bay, where they used to build impossible towers out of nutrient cubes. Emma. I just got accepted to the Alliance Academy's Xenobiology program. When I graduate, I want to come work with you and the Keepers. My parents said we might even get assigned to one of the new partnership colonies they're planning. Can you believe it? 6 months ago you were just Emma from hydroponics, and now you're like a galactic ambassador or something. Emma laughed, remembering the scared little girl who had been pushed into an alien cave as a sacrifice to what everyone thought was a monster. That felt like a lifetime ago. Not quite an ambassador, she said to herself. Just someone who learned how to make friends. But, as Emma made her way to the education center, she reflected on how much had changed, not just for her, but for everyone involved. The Zephyrian Empire had begun restructuring their expansion policies around cooperation rather than domination. Human colonies were implementing biointegration technology that promised to revolutionize how humans lived with alien ecosystems. And, the Keepers were no longer alone, no longer forced to maintain their planets without the partners they had been designed to work with. The education meeting was being held in one of the new bio-integrated chambers, where living walls provided both structure and environmental control. When Emma arrived, she found representatives from all three species already deep in discussion about curriculum development. Ah, Emma, said Professor Yeltar, a young Zephyrian who had become one of the program's lead developers. We were just discussing how to teach the principles of biointegration to students who have never experienced multi-species cooperation. Start with the basics, Emma suggested, taking her seat at the curved table that had literally grown from the chamber's floor. Teach them that every species has something unique to offer. Humans have adaptability and creative problem-solving. Zephyrians have technological sophistication and organizational abilities. Keepers have ecological wisdom and biointegration capabilities. But, more importantly, added Keeper Sage, the elder keeper who served as the collective's liaison to the education program, teach them that these differences are strengths, not weaknesses. That cooperation multiplies capabilities rather than dividing them. Emma nodded. And, teach them to ask questions. To be curious instead of afraid when they encounter something they don't understand. As the meeting progressed, Emma found herself thinking about the message she had recorded for the Alliance Educational Archives, a detailed account of her experience with Frost and the lessons learned about interspecies cooperation. That recording was already being used at schools throughout human space, showing children that the universe was full of potential friends and partners, not just threats and competitors. The most important thing we can teach them, Emma said as the meeting wrapped up, is that making friends can change everything. Later that evening, Emma made her way back to the biochamber for her daily visit with Frost. She found the massive wolf in the garden section, carefully tending to a new growth of crystalline bioforms that pulsed with soft blue light. How was the education meeting? Frost asked through the translation interface. Good, Emma said, settling down beside her enormous friend. We're making progress on the curriculum. In a few months, we'll have the first generation of children learning cooperation instead of competition as their basic approach to dealing with other species. This is important work, Frost replied, lowering its massive head so Emma could scratch behind its ears, a gesture that still amazed her with its simple demonstration of trust across species lines. The young ones will build the future we are all creating together. Emma looked around the chamber, at the incredible biotechnology that surrounded them, at the display showing the healthy, thriving ecosystem that now covered the entire planet. Do you think we can really make it work? This whole cooperative model? Frost's response came not just as words but as a flood of sensory data through the biocollar interface, images of other worlds where similar partnerships might be possible, calculations showing the exponential benefits of cooperative development, and something else that took Emma a moment to recognize. Hope. Pure, overwhelming hope for a future where intelligence was used for creation rather than destruction, where differences were celebrated rather than feared, where the universe itself became a garden tended by friends working together. Yes, Frost said simply. We can make it work. We already have. Emma smiled, looking up at the chamber's ceiling where artificial stars now showed real-time images of the planet's night sky. Out there, among those real stars, new partnerships were being formed. New friendships were being made. The galaxy was slowly learning the lesson that an 8-year-old human girl and an ancient alien guardian had taught each other in the depths of Kepler 442b. Sometimes the most dangerous creature in the universe is the one that looks helpless. Sometimes the greatest predator is the one that hunts not for prey, but for friendship. And, sometimes, the most powerful force in the galaxy is not a weapon or a technology, but a small hand reaching out in trust to touch the nose of something vast and wonderful and previously misunderstood. The universe was a much bigger place than anyone had imagined. But, as Emma had learned in the biochambers of Kepler 442b, it was also much more friendly than anyone had dared to hope. In the end, that was the most human thing of all, the courage to hope for friendship in the face of the unknown, and the wisdom to recognize that the scariest looking monsters might just be the best friends you haven't made yet.